Starke Sound is a company that I've personally only been familiar with for a very short time, and to be honest, I thought they were just another name amongst all the other numerous speaker manufacturers out there. That is, until I got a chance to hear the Starke Sound BRIO series V62 towers for myself. And that's exactly what today's video is all about. I'm going to be showing you around the BRIO V62 towers and talking about why I think these are some amazing speakers for just around the $2,000 price point. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, then stick around and we'll get into it right after the intro. Alright, so as I mentioned, these are the BRIO V62 towers from a company called Starke Sound. And Starke was actually kind enough to lend these speakers to us for review, so we want to give them a big thanks for that. And before we get started, I just want to mention that we only have 2 speakers for this review, so we'll be sticking to 2-channel listening unless we can get our hands on a matching center channel speaker and some surrounds, which may be possible in the future. Of course, it's always been our opinion that if a speaker sounds good for music, it'll also sound great for home theater, and Starke Sound does focus its product lines on both multi-channel movies and stereo music for the home. But before we get into the speakers, I want to take a second to talk about Starke Sound themselves, and they were actually formed in 2009 by a group of engineers, designers, and audiophiles in Southern California, all with the common goal of trying to make some of the best sounding and looking speakers they could for the price. And Starke actually has some of the most talented speaker designers in the world, and they use a pretty simple philosophy of trying to simplify a speaker into its most basic components and applying their expertise to each and every part to create the best product possible. And thankfully, some of their best designs have trickled down into the more affordable speaker lines like the BRIO series, meaning they can offer great performance for both movies and music at a very good price. With all that said, the V62 towers are in the mid-range of Starke's BRIO line, with the 6 in the model, meaning the speaker has 6.5-inch woofers, and the 2 meaning it's got 2 of them. And this falls right between speakers like the VB61 bookshelves and the V64 towers, meaning it should hopefully give us an idea as to what exactly the BRIO series can offer. Along with the dual metal ceramic woofers, Starke has also incorporated a 1-inch soft gnome tweeter, and all of these drivers are hidden behind these metal mesh grills, which actually help protect them from outside damage, and personally, I think the grills make them look very high-end. All around the speaker, we've got this matte white finish, which looks really classy and helps to hide any scratches or fingerprints on the cabinet. And overall, I think these speakers have a very modern, minimalist, and sort of industrial look, and all those come together to form what I think is really a great looking speaker. On the back, the V62s have a pair of pretty big rear firing ports for bass, and below those, we also have a pair of high quality 5-way binding posts mounted to this really nice thick aluminum plate. And even though it's not a very essential part of the speaker, Starke still makes every inch of these boxes look and feel premium. On the bottom, the V62s even have these neat built-in rectangular stands, which almost make the speakers look like they're floating, which is a pretty cool effect. Taking a look at the specs, the V62 towers advertise that they're a high-sensitivity, easy-to-drive pair of speakers, which is a claim that we can totally agree with a rated sensitivity of 90 decibels. Starke recommends powering these with anything between 35 and 300 watts of power, and you want to make sure that your amp is capable of pushing a 4-ohm load. Starke also claims a frequency response of 32 Hz to 20 kHz, all within 3 dB. And these cabinets are also pretty solid, and each speaker weighs in at about 38 pounds or roughly 17 kilograms, and they stand at 40 inches tall. Now with all that said, obviously it doesn't matter how good a speaker looks, or how well it's built for that matter, if it doesn't have the sound quality to match, and that's exactly where the Starke Sound V62 towers absolutely blew us away. We tested these speakers in both our acoustically treated home theater room as well as in our living room just to see how they would act in both environments. And in each of those rooms, we used high-end processors and amplifiers to make sure we got the best performance possible out of the speakers. First, we took a look at the V62 towers upstairs and hooked them up to our 200-watt Emotiva UPA-1 mono blocks and listened to some CDs to get an idea of how they'd perform in an ideal setup. And honestly, it only took us a few minutes of listening to realize that these speakers bring something special to the table. As soon as we hooked them up, we noticed that these speakers just sound amazing. And the huge amounts of power provided by the Emotiva monoblocks really brought these speakers to life. The first thing that really stuck out to me personally was the mid-range, and these speakers sound very musical and lively, probably thanks to the speed of the dual 6.5-inch woofers, and this resulted in some very clear and realistic vocals that seem to appear right in front of the listening position. The soundstage was very wide as well, and it seemed like instruments were extending well past the boundaries of the room itself. Everything had lots of texture and detail without ever being bright or harsh to our ears, even when cranking up the volume a lot. The highs were very smooth and warm while still having tons of detail, and the bass was also very clean and impactful down to about 30 Hz. Now, I feel like I could be saying these things about a lot of the different speakers that we reviewed here on our channel, and these speakers are great, but they're great in their own way, just like every other high fidelity speaker on the market. And that's what makes reviewing any pair of speakers a little difficult. Keeping the price in mind, they're an absolutely great value to our ears, but there are a couple things to consider. First and foremost, it is a matter of taste. These speakers have a sound that we really enjoy. They're very balanced throughout their entire frequency response, and nothing sounds overpowering or annoying. At the same time, there doesn't seem to be anything that these speakers lack either. In that regard, although the sound signature is different, we actually like these speakers just as much as our Vandersteen 2CE signature towers, which is a pretty amazing feat for a speaker that only costs about half the price. If I could find one little thing to nitpick about with these speakers, it would be that they needed quite a bit of power before they started to pump out lots of low frequency bass. But on the flip side, with good power, the bass coming out of the dual 6.5-inch drivers was incredibly fast and tight. And I think this is a good time to mention that we did throw in the included port plugs, and while it did seem to tighten up the bass response a little bit, there was a pretty substantial loss in low frequency output, and honestly, we preferred the sound without the port plugs in. Of course, if you're using these speakers in a home theater setup, you'll probably be crossing them over 80 Hz anyway, so it's really not that big of a deal, and I'm willing to miss out on some of the low end for such a detailed and refined mid-range and top end. After our upstairs listening test, we took these speakers down into our living room, where each speaker is being powered by a Marantz MA500 monoblock amp, pushing 125 watts per channel to 8 ohms and about 180 watts into 4 ohms. And even in our large, open concept living room, which is definitely not an ideal space for acoustics, the V62 towers offered some pretty great sound, and because the speakers were loaded in the corner of the room, it enhanced the low end frequency response even more. In both environments, these speakers did an exceptional job, and we're seriously impressed at just how good these speakers are for so many different types of content. And the fact that Starke is offering all of that at $2,200 a pair is pretty impressive, and I'd definitely be considering these if I were in the market for a great sounding pair of speakers. And with all that said, I think it's time to wrap up this video, guys, so make sure you take a look at the BRIO V62 towers on Starke Sound's website, and we'll be sure to leave a link in the description so you can go check that out for yourself. If you want to chat about home theater, technology, or any other topics with us and other members of the community, then don't forget to join our TwoGuyzTech Discord chat, and again, link is in the description below. Please let us know if you have any other questions or comments on the Starke Sound BRIO V62 towers down in the comment section below, and we'll do our best to answer them. If you thought this video was helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss any of our future content, and as always, have an awesome day.